Pinot Noir is one of your things, yeah?
Yeah.
I've noticed there's quite a buzz about South African Pinot Noir at the moment. The quality seems to be going up. What's your feeling about Pinot Noir in South Africa?
Yeah, I think that there's finally a critical mass of producers really getting it right. You know, I think it's a combination of plant material that's finally of a really high quality, planting the right clones in the right areas, and finding the right pockets of soil and microclimate where it works. You know, I think there's nothing complicated when it comes to making good and great wines. You know, it's about finding the right spot to plant it. You know, so I think people are just finally kind of cottoning onto that and doing just that. You know, producers are also figuring out that Pinot requires a kind of a soft approach in the cellar. You know, it's an elegant grape. It's a grape that doesn't always give you a lot of itself, but trying to force out flavor, trying to force out character from the grape is going to get you nowhere. You know, it's a matter of nurturing. It's a matter of kind of steering the ship rather than determining its course.
Guys, can you tell me about Pinot Noir in South Africa, and particularly in Elgin, where you're making Pinot Noir? My impression is that the quality seems to be going up.
Sure.
What's been happening?
I think the exciting thing is Pinot Noir in the last 10 years in South Africa has really exploded, especially in the areas like Elgin and Walker Bay. If you think South Africa as a producer is fairly small, we only produce 1,000 hectares in total, of which only 200 hectares go to table wine. But in the last 5 years, the plantings in both Elgin and Walker Bay has doubled. And I think the exciting thing is you're going to see some wonderful wines coming out of the Elgin appellation. A lot of new of the Burgundy quality clones, the Dijon clones have been planted. And I think especially on our property, the fact that Andries now has got about 15 years of experience with the variety is really starting to show.
So, tell me about Pinot Noir in South Africa.
Sure. Because we have Pinot growing in quite a wide area of the Western Cape, I've had the opportunity to work with all of those Pinots. I've seen that I'm a bit of a gypsy, and decided in 2004 that the region of Elgin was exactly what I wanted to create. And it was still a very young area in terms of vineyards being planted there, but I wanted to be one of the pioneers of the area, and started working with Pinot then. And what I really liked about Elgin, first of all, is that we have obviously the topography being elevated at quite close to the ocean, and also I liked the diversity of soils. And the many multifaceted combinations of those soils as well. And because I have the privilege again of working with 4 different growers in the region, I'm able to select parcels of Pinots off a whole lot of different soils, and that for me makes it very, very interesting, which is why I have the different styles of Pinot that I'm making. The clay soils are giving you the darker, more brooding Beethoven, Hamlet-styled wines, whereas the lighter sandstone soils are giving me more of the sort of ethereal Mozart styles. And so I really wanted to start creating different portfolios of Pinot to express that and to show purity, driving more of the purity there. I've started working a little bit more on biodynamic farming too, implementing that into the program. So within the next sort of 5-6 years, we'll see the first of those wines coming out. I'm not going the whole route. I want to first see what Burgundy is saying about purity and energy in Pinot coming off biodynamic farmed soil. So it'll be quite interesting for me to see that.
And what do you do in the cellar with Pinot?
Minimal. I think for me it's about farming for flavor. So I do a lot more work with the growers than I do really in the winery. I keep it very basic, very simple. I think for me it's about picking date, that is critical. Something I've learned from the top Burgundian producers is that we don't want jammy flavors. We want to keep the graphite sort of energy, laser-like seam through the wine. And so I'm kind of picking this side of ripeness rather than that side, which I'm finding a lot of South Africans tend to do. They like the sort of glossy opulence in their wines, but I'm looking for more the fresh, upright styled wines, and so I'm picking more towards 13% if I can, because the thing about Elgin is it gives me the opportunity to do that, because we have long, cold ripening ability in these vineyards. So we can open up the canopies, let the grapes hang, get the tannins to ripen more slowly and more even, without the alcohol elevation and sugar spiking. So that for me is critical. And as the vines are getting older and older, we're starting to see a little bit more mid-palate weight, and we are able to pick earlier and still get that lovely sort of weight that we need in the wine, and then lovely clean finish on the end.
And do you think that the South African winemakers now who are working with Pinot Noir have a better idea of the destination of where they're going to in terms of what creates a great Pinot Noir?
Certainly, and I think that ties hand in hand with producers having travelled more and having drunk great wine. I think if you look at the best winemakers around the world, if you look at the Nieuports of the world, the guys that are really pushing the boundaries, these guys drink great wine on a regular basis, and if you can do that, if you know what great wine is, if you know what great Pinot is, then you can kind of start putting the processes in place to produce those great wines, but I think, that's the path that needs to be followed.
So tell me about Pinot Noir in South Africa.
Yeah, no, I think Pinot is definitely becoming very exciting. I mean, there's a lot of experimentation that's been taking place with the variety. Yeah. I think winemakers generally are better travelled now, and we're trying to more create our own unique style. And I also think interesting is that we've got better clones we're working with now. The selection of different virus-free material is better, and we seem to find more and better and more interesting pockets. And I think people are focusing more on the soil aspect to farming than they ever did before, and I think that has a very big impact on the quality of Pinot Noir.
Does yield matter with Pinot Noir?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the problem was with previous clones is it was very mass production clones, very diluted fruit, and I think now we seem to have lower yielding stuff, but we also do much more green harvesting, more selection outside, and we seem to get a better intensity and concentration in the Pinots.
And so your Pinot comes from the farm in Franschhoek, yeah?
Yeah.
It's not a region associated with Pinot Noir, is it?
Yeah, no, traditionally not, but I think we've basically going for very high altitude. We want to find that cold night, so we plant Pinot up to about 600 meters above sea level. We're making real terraces up into the mountains. We're even doing now one pole system, and I think by finding the right clones and really just being passionate about variety, I think you can really then achieve something.
And when you get into the cellar, how do you treat it?
Well, I've tried different things. I think for me now very important is that I try to find the real flavour of Pinot and the purity of fruit, and so I think I try to do a lot of whole berry fermentation. I don't try to go for concentration and weight, and try to find just balance in the wines, and naturally a spontaneous ferment needs to get done. We try to keep a bit of stalks in it because we don't have such high acidity as you'd find in Burgundy. So I think the stalks just give it a bit of that austerity and tightness, and I think that's basically our approach.
So I gather you've been using some stems.
We have. Jamie, you've noticed it. A couple of other people have started to talk about it. And I know of a couple of people in South Africa and certainly internationally that are using it. It was a guru, a mentor that came and joined us for a while, a guy called Kricha, who brought me into the idea. It went completely against everything I'd learned, but with a couple of trials and experiments, I've started to use more and more. And really the idea is to try and bring intrigue, in complexity, in aromatics.
Do you think Pinot Noir is going to be a niche thing in South Africa, or do you think there's potential for it to grow?
I think it's going to be a niche thing. I think it actually needs to be a niche thing. I think if it grew too much and was started being planted it would have to be planted in the wrong areas, as far as I'm concerned, if it were to grow too big. So I think there's certain areas around Hermanus in the Himmeland area. You have sites which are 350 meters above sea level, but 10 kilometers away from the sea. Which are fantastic spots for Pinot. So I think looking at the climate that we have, it kind of has to be a niche thing if it's going to be successful. Yeah, but there's certainly room for growth, but limited.
And in the cellar, does it need a particular approach to bring the best out of it?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it does. You need to be incredibly respectful of your fruit. You need to sort. You need to be, very careful how you work. But there's certain fundamental principles that if you follow, you can get the best out of it. But once again, it goes back to the vineyard. It goes back to the site. It's there's no question that if you have great fruit, you can make great wine. But you can't make great wine out of average fruit. It doesn't happen.